My dear friends, let us begin by considering what we mean by forcing yourself to suffer. Is it not, in essence, a call to embrace the difficult, the uncomfortable, the challenging aspects of life that we so often seek to avoid? As I wrote in The Problem of Pain, we can ignore even pleasure, but pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. Indeed, it is often through our suffering, our struggles, our moments of discomfort, that we are roused from our complacency and called to a higher purpose. But let us not be mistaken. This is not a call to seek out needless pain or to glorify suffering for its own sake. Rather, it is an invitation to recognize the transformative power of willingly embracing necessary discomforts in pursuit of our highest aspiration. As I explored in Mere Christianity, I didn't go to religion to make me happy. I always knew a bottle of port would do that. If you want a religion to make you feel really comfortable, I certainly don't recommend Christianity. In the same vein, if you want a philosophy of life that makes you feel constantly comfortable and at ease, I certainly don't recommend the path of willpower and self-imposed challenge. But if you seek a life of growth, of purpose, of becoming all that you are capable of being, then this path of willingly embracing necessary suffering may be exactly what you need. But let us address a potential objection at the outset. You might be thinking, Lewis, isn't there enough suffering in the world already? Why should we deliberately seek out more? This is a fair question, and one that deserves our careful consideration. Indeed, as I wrote in The Problem of Pain, pain is God's megaphone to rouse a deaf world. There is no shortage of pain and suffering in our world, much of it unavoidable and beyond our control. But there is a fundamental difference between the suffering that is thrust upon us by circumstances and the suffering we choose to embrace in pursuit of a higher purpose. It is this chosen suffering, this willful embrace of difficulty, that we are discussing today. As I wrote in the Screwtape Letters, indeed the safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without milestones, without signposts. The same can be said of the road to mediocrity, to a life half lived. It is not the dramatic failures that most often derail us, but the slow erosion of our will, the gradual acceptance of comfort over growth, of ease over challenge. So how do we begin to force ourselves to suffer, to build this ultimate willpower? It starts, I believe, with a clear understanding of our own nature and potential. As I wrote in The Weight of Glory, there are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilizations, these are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals whom we joke with, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. Immortal horrors or everlasting splendors. When we truly internalize this truth, that we are beings of immense potential, capable of becoming either immortal horrors or everlasting splendors, we begin to see the importance of willpower in a new light. We recognize that each choice to embrace difficulty, each moment of chosen suffering, is shaping not just our present circumstances, but our eternal destiny. The power of small, consistent acts of willpower. As I wrote in Mere Christianity, good and evil both increase at compound interest. That is why the little decisions you and I make every day are of such infinite importance. Forcing yourself to suffer, in this context, is not primarily about grand, heroic acts of endurance. It is about the small, daily choices we make. To wake up when we'd rather sleep in, to exercise when we'd rather relax, to face a difficult conversation when we'd rather avoid it, to persist in a challenging task when we'd rather give up. These small acts of willpower compound over time, shaping our character and our destiny. As I wrote in the Screwtape Letters, indeed the safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones. The same is true of the road to greatness. It is paved with small, consistent acts of chosen suffering, of willpower exercised in the face of some difficulty. But perhaps you are wondering, Lewis, how do we maintain this willpower in the face of constant temptation, fatigue, and the myriad comforts of modern life? This, my friends, is where the real battle begins. This is where forcing yourself to suffer becomes not just a concept, but a lived reality. The key, I believe, lies in developing what I call a disciplined imagination. As I wrote in Mere Christianity, imagine yourself as a living house. God comes in to rebuild that house. At first, perhaps you can understand what he is doing. He is getting the drains right and stopping the leaks in the roof and so on. You knew that those jobs needed doing, and so you are not surprised. But presently he starts knocking the house about in a way that hurts abominably and does not seem to make any sense. What on earth is he up to? The explanation is that he is building quite a different house from the one you thought of, throwing out a new wing here, putting on an extra floor there, running up towers, making courtyards. You thought you were being made into a decent little cottage, but he is building a palace. He intends to come and live in it himself. When we force ourselves to suffer, when we choose the path of willpower and self-discipline, we are participating in this divine reconstruction. We are allowing ourselves to be shaped into something far greater than we could have imagined. But this requires us to use our imagination, to see beyond our current discomfort, our current limitations, to the person we are capable of becoming. This disciplined imagination allows us to endure present sufferings for the sake of future rewards. It enables us to say yes to difficulty and no to comfort when doing so aligns with our highest aspirations. As I wrote in The Great Divorce, there are only two kinds of people in the end. Those who say to God, "Thy will be done," and those to whom God says, "In the end, thy will be done." When we force ourselves to suffer, we are aligning our will with a higher purpose, with our highest potential. But let us be clean for its own sake. As I wrote in The Problem of Pain, God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our consciences, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. The goal of forcing yourself to suffer is not to live a life of constant misery, but to use necessary discomfort as a tool for growth, as a megaphone to rouse us from complacency and mediocrity. This brings us to an important distinction: the difference between constructive and destructive suffering. Constructive suffering is that which leads to growth, to the development of character, to the achievement of worthy goals. Destructive suffering, on the other hand, is needless, purposeless pain that leads only to bitterness and despair. As I wrote in The Grief Observed, pain is God's megaphone to rouse a deaf world. We are blocks of stone out of which the sculptor carves the forms of men. The blows of his chisel, which hurt us so much, are what make us perfect. The key is to recognize which sufferings in our lives are the sculptor's chisel, shaping us into our best selves, and which are merely needless pain to be avoided or overcome. Now, as we delve deeper into this concept of forcing yourself to suffer as the ultimate willpower guide, let us consider the various arenas in which this principle can be applied. For this willful embrace of difficulty can transform every aspect of our lives. Our physical health, our mental acuity, our emotional resilience, our relationships, our work, and our spiritual lives. In the physical realm, forcing yourself to suffer might take the form of rigorous exercise, of pushing your body beyond its comfort zone. As I wrote in the Screwtape Letters, indeed, the safest road to hell is the gradual one, the gentle slope, soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without milestones, without signposts. The same is true of physical decline. It often comes not from dramatic injuries, but from the slow, comfortable descent into inactivity and indulgence, by choosing to embrace physical discomfort. The burn of exercise, the discipline of a healthy diet, the challenge of physical labor, we build not just stronger bodies, but stronger wills. We develop the capacity to override our immediate desires for the sake of our long-term well-being. In the mental realm, Forcing yourself to suffer might involve tackling difficult intellectual challenges, pushing the boundaries of your knowledge and understanding. As I wrote in The Abolition of Man, we make men without chests and expect of them virtue and enterprise. We laugh at honor and are shocked to find traitors in our midst when we shy away from mental effort. When we avoid the discomfort of grappling with complex ideas or challenging our own assumptions, we rob ourselves of the opportunity for intellectual growth and moral development. By choosing to engage with difficult ideas, to study challenging subjects, to question our own beliefs and biases, we strengthen not just our minds, but our characters. We develop the intellectual rigor and moral clarity necessary to navigate an increasingly complex world. In the emotional realm, forcing yourself to suffer might mean facing your fears, confronting painful emotions, or stepping out of your comfort zone in social situations. As I wrote in The Four Loves, to love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything, and your heart will be wrung and possibly broken. If you want to make sure of keeping it intact, you must give it to no one, not even an animal. Wrap it carefully round with hobbies and little luxuries. Avoid all entanglements. Lock it up safe in the casket or coffin of your selfishness. But in that casket, safe, dark, motionless, airless, it will change. It will not be broken. It will become unbreakable, impenetrable, irredeemable. By choosing to be vulnerable to face emotional discomfort head-on, we develop greater emotional resilience and depth. We become capable of deeper connections, of more authentic relationships. In our relationships, forcing yourself to suffer might involve having difficult conversations, setting boundaries, or making sacrifices for the good of others. As I wrote in The Four Loves, you too, I thought that no one but myself. True connection often requires us to push through the discomfort of vulnerability, of potential rejection, of confronting differences and disagreements. By choosing to engage in the sometimes painful work of building and maintaining deep relationships, we develop greater empathy, stronger bonds, and a more profound understanding of both ourselves and others. In our work lives, forcing yourself to suffer might mean taking on challenging projects, pushing through tedium and frustration, or sacrificing short-term comfort for long-term success. As I wrote in Mere Christian, surely what a man does when he is taken off his guard is the best evidence for what sort of man he is. When we choose to embrace the difficulties inherent in meaningful work, we reveal and develop our true character. By consistently choosing to do what is difficult but important over what is easy but trivial, we build not just successful careers but lives of purpose. And in our spiritual lives, forcing yourself to suffer might involve the disciplines of prayer, fasting, self-examination, and service to others. As I wrote in The Problem of Pain, we can ignore even pleasure. But pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. By choosing to engage in spiritual disciplines, even when they are difficult or uncomfortable, we open ourselves to deeper truths, to transformative experiences, to a more profound connection with the divine. Now, as we near the midpoint of our discourse, let us consider how we might practically apply this philosophy of forcing ourselves to suffer in our daily lives. It begins, I believe, with a shift in perspective. As I wrote in Mere Christianity, if you look for truth, you may find comfort in the end. If you look for comfort, you will not get either comfort or truth, only soft soap and wishful thinking to begin, and in the end, despair. Start each day by asking yourself, what difficult thing can I do today that will help me grow? This might be as simple as waking up a bit earlier, tackling a challenging task first thing in the morning. The key is to consistently choose growth over comfort, progress over stasis. Practice what I call discomfort training. Just as an athlete trains their body to perform under increasingly challenging conditions, we can train our willpower by deliberately putting ourselves in mildly uncomfortable situations. This might involve taking cold showers, fasting for short periods, or engaging in challenging physical exercise. The goal is not to cause harm, but to gradually expand our capacity to endure discomfort for the sake of growth. Cultivate a mindset of embracing challenges. As I wrote in The Horse and His Boy, do not by any means destroy yourself. For if you live, you may yet have good fortune, but all the dead are dead alike. When faced with a difficult situation, rather than immediately seeking to avoid or escape it, pause and ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How might this challenge help me grow? Develop what I call future self empathy. Before making a decision, consider how your future self will feel about this choice. Will you be proud of having pushed through the difficulty, or will you regret having taken the easy way out? As I wrote in the Screwtape Letters, indeed the safest road to hell is the gradual one. The gentle slope soft underfoot, without sudden turnings, without signposts. By considering the long-term consequences of our choices, we can avoid the gradual descent into mediocrity and stagnation. Practice gratitude for your struggles. As counterintuitive as it may seem, learning to be thankful for our difficulties can transform our relationship with suffering. As I wrote in The Problem of Pain, we can ignore even pleasure. But pain insists upon being attended to. God whispers to us in our pleasures, speaks in our conscience, but shouts in our pains. It is his megaphone to rouse a deaf world. When we view our challenges as opportunities for growth rather than as burdens to be avoided, we unlock their transformative potential. Cultivate supportive relationships. As I wrote, in The Four Loves, friendship is born at the moment when one man says to another, what? You too. I thought that no one but myself. And surround yourself with people who understand and support your commitment to growth through challenge. Share your goals, your struggles, and your victories with them. Allow them to encourage you when your resolve wavers and to celebrate with you when you overcome difficulties. Regularly reflect on your progress. As I wrote in Mere Christianity, we all want progress. But if you're on the wrong road, progress means doing an about turn and walking back to the right road. In that case, the man who turns back soonest is the most progressive. Take time to assess whether your chosen sufferings are truly serving your growth and your highest aspirations. Be willing to adjust your approach as needed, always keeping your ultimate goals in sight. And finally, remember the ultimate purpose of this willful suffering. As I wrote in The Weight of Glory, it would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased by forcing ourselves to suffer. By choosing the path of willpower and self-discipline, we are not diminishing our lives, but expanding them. We are reaching for that infinite joy, that holiday at the sea, rather than contenting ourselves with mud pies in a slum. As we move into the latter part of our discourse, let us consider the broader implications of this philosophy. What might our world look like if more of us chose to force ourselves to suffer in pursuit of our highest potential? Imagine, if you will, a society where people regularly chose the difficult right over the easy wrong, where instant gratification was routinely sacrificed for long-term flourishing, where comfort was seen not as an end in itself, but as a respite to be earned through meaningful effort, where challenges were embraced as opportunities for growth rather than obstacles to be avoided. This, I believe, is the transformative potential of our philosophy. By choosing to force ourselves to suffer, to build our willpower through consistent, chosen discomfort, we not only transform our own lives, but contribute to a cultural shift. We become part of a counterculture of resilience in a world often dominated by the pursuit of ease and comfort. But let us not be naive. This path is not an easy one. In a world that often equates happiness with comfort and success with ease, choosing to force yourself to suffer can seem counterintuitive, even foolish. We may face misunderstanding. We may be tempted to give up. We may even begin to doubt the value of our chosen path. Yet I would argue that this is a small price to pay for the growth, the strength, the character we gain. As I wrote in the last battle, I've come home at last. This is my real country. I belong here. This is the land I have been looking for all my life, though I never knew it till now. When we choose to force ourselves to suffer, to build our willpower through chosen discomfort, we come home to our true selves. We find our real country, our true belonging, not in the fleeting pleasures of ease and comfort, but in the deep satisfaction of becoming all that we are capable of being. Moreover, by choosing this path, we give others permission to do the same. We create spaces of courage and resilience in our families, our workplaces, our communities. We demonstrate that it's possible to thrive not in spite of difficulties. As we near the conclusion of our discourse, let us consider one final aspect of our philosophy, its spiritual dimension. As I wrote in Mere Christianity, if I find in myself desires which nothing in this world can satisfy, the only logical explanation is that I was made for another world. When we force ourselves to suffer, when we choose the path of willpower and self-discipline, we open ourselves to this other world, not as an escape from reality, but as a deeper engagement with it. We touch something eternal, something beyond the fleeting nature of comfort and ease. This is not to say that we should ignore or devalue the good things of this world. Far from it. As I wrote in the Screwtape Letters, there are two equal and opposite errors into which our race can fall about the devils. One is to disbelieve in their existence. The other is to believe and to feel an excessive and unhealthy interest in them. In the same way, there are two errors we can make about suffering. One is to avoid it altogether, to become so focused on comfort and ease that we never grow or develop our potential. The other is to become so enamored with the idea of suffering that we lose sight of its purpose, growth, development, the realization of our highest potential. The key is to find a balance, to force ourselves to suffer in ways that are constructive and purposeful, while still appreciating the good things in life. This balance allows us to be in the world, but not of it, to engage fully with life while constantly pushing ourselves to grow and improve. As we draw our discourse to a close, let me share with you a final thought from The Weight of Glory. It would seem that our Lord finds our desires not too strong, but too weak. We are half-hearted creatures, fooling about with drink and sex and ambition, when infinite joy is offered us, like an ignorant child who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum, because he cannot imagine what is meant by the offer of a holiday at the sea. We are far too easily pleased. My friends, when we shy away from difficulty, when we choose comfort over growth, ease over challenge, we are like that child making mud pies. We are contenting ourselves with far less than what is offered to us. Willpower, developed through chosen suffering, is not just a tool for achievement. It is the key to a fuller, richer, more meaningful existence. So I challenge you, as you leave this hall and return to your daily lives, to aim higher. Aim not just for comfort or success as the world defines it, but for the kind of growth and development that only comes through willingly embraced challenge. Force yourself to suffer, not because suffering itself is good, but because it is through this chosen discomfort that we forge our best selves. Remember, as I wrote in the line, The Witch and the Wardrobe, once a king or queen of Narnia, always a king or queen of Narnia. In the same way, once you embrace this philosophy of willpower through chosen suffering, it becomes a part of who you are. It shapes your identity, your choices, your very being. Go forth with courage, with determination, and with the unshakable belief in your own capacity for growth and transformation. Be kind to yourself along the way. Celebrate the victories, learn from the setbacks, and never lose sight of the magnificent being you are becoming through this process of willful suffering. And as you do so, remember that your journey of building willpower through chosen suffering is not just for you alone. It is a gift you give to the world, a light that illuminates the path for others in choosing to force yourself to suffer. In choosing to build your willpower, you become a beacon of hope, a source of inspiration, a force for good in a world that so desperately needs examples of individuals striving for their highest potential. As I wrote in The Weight of Glory, it is a serious thing to live in a society of possible gods and goddesses. To remember that the dullest and most uninteresting person you talk to may one day be a creature, which, if you saw it now, you would be strongly tempted to worship, or else a horror and a corruption such as you now meet, if at all, only in a nightmare. By forcing yourself to suffer, by consistently choosing the path of growth over comfort, you are participating in this grand transformation. You are becoming, day by day, choice by choice, that creature of glory. And in doing so, you are inviting others to recognize and pursue their own potential for greatness. So, my dear friends, as you leave this hall today and return to the arena of your daily lives, carry with you this truth. The most important battles you will ever fight are those against your own comfort, your own complacency, your own tendency to choose the easy over the meaningful. The most significant victories you will ever win are those over your own weakness, your own fears, your own... Remember, as I wrote in Mere Christianity, the only things we can keep are the things we freely give to God. What we try to keep for ourselves is just what we are sure to lose. In the same way, it is only by giving ourselves fully to this process of growth through chosen suffering, by surrendering our comfort, our ease, our immediate gratifications, that we truly gain ourselves in the deepest sense. Let every challenge you face be an opportunity to strengthen your willpower. Let every temptation to choose comfort over growth be a chance to reaffirm your commitment to becoming your best self. Let every moment of weakness be a reminder of your capacity for strength, for it is in these moments of choice, these battlegrounds of will, that your character is forged and your destiny shaped. And when the path seems too difficult, when the suffering seems too great, when your resolve wavers, remember, you are capable of more than you know. As I wrote in The Horse and His Boy, do not by any means destroy yourself, for if you live, you may yet have good fortune, but all the dead are dead alike. Every day that you choose growth over comfort, challenge over ease, you are creating good fortune for yourself and for the world. And I've been left with one final thought from the last battle. All their life in this world and all their adventures had only been the cover and the title page. Now at last they were beginning chapter 1 of the great story which no one on earth has read, which goes on forever, in which every chapter is better than the one before. My friends, let this be the beginning of your great story, a story of willpower, of chosen suffering, of constant growth and transformation, a story written not in the ink of comfort and ease, but in the indelible mark of purposeful struggle and meaningful achievement. A story that, though it may not always be easy or pleasant, will be deeply, profoundly satisfying. Remember, the most profound transformations often happen in the crucible of difficulty. Like a diamond formed under immense pressure, your character is shaped by the challenges you willingly embrace, each choice to force yourself to suffer. Each victory of will over comfort is a step towards becoming the person you are meant to be. So go forth, dear ones. Force yourself to suffer, not out of a morbid fascination with pain, but out of a deep love for the person you are becoming and the impact you can have on the world. Trust that by consistently choosing growth over comfort, challenge over ease, you are participating in a grand transformation, not just of yourself, but of the very world around you. May your journey be blessed with moments of triumph, unexpected growth, and the deep satisfaction that comes from knowing you are becoming the best version of yourself. May you find the strength to persist when the path is difficult, the wisdom to learn from your setbacks, and the joy that comes from living a life of purpose and self-mastery. Thank you, and may you go forth to write your great story, one willful choice at a time. Remember, in the grand battle of will versus comfort, you have the power to emerge victorious. The choice, as always, is yours. Choose wisely, choose bravely, choose growth. Your future self, and indeed the world, will thank you for it.